Welcome to Radio Amenti, embracing the eternal now, where minds and timelines merge, inspiring synchronicity, awakening potential, and making sense of change.
Before we officially begin this episode, I want to issue a trigger warning to anybody tuning in. This episode discusses sensitive topics relating to pregnancy, including personal experiences, themes of body dysmorphia, life, death, miscarriage. These subjects can be triggering for some listeners, understandably so. So I'd advise you to please listen with care and caution, and feel free to skip this episode if you find these topics to be difficult or particularly challenging. And if this isn't for you, it's totally fine. If this is for you, I hope you find this episode meaningful and insightful, whether you are trying to conceive currently with child, a parent, new or seasoned. I hope this episode helps you feel a little less alone if you have chosen the unorthodox path to being the custodian of a life. And so we begin. Imagine the sky as a mother. She births the sun with each new day. Newt stretches across the heavens, swaddling the stars in her vast embrace. As the sun rises, her love fills the sky, steady, cosmic, infinite, holding everything together. In her presence you are safe, knowing that darkness is but a cradle for your light. As the day unfolds, Tara moves like a whisper. The mother of compassion is the wind at your back, unseen but always felt. She is the guardian who guides you through the unseen, like the fleeting green flash right before sunset. Her protection holds a powerful secret promise that even in the quiet, you are heard. As the light fades, Mother Demeter grieves. Her earth cools beneath your feet, her sorrow palpable. Her daughter Persephone descends into the underworld, and winter settles in her absence. Demeter's love is endless, but it knows the weight of loss. Yet every spring she brings life back to earth, a reminder that love, even in its grief, can bloom yet again. Twilight deepens, and a fire burns in the distance. Kali. She arrives not with comfort, but with fury, her wild dance igniting the night. She is the destroyer. Are you ready? She asks. Kali's love is fierce and transformative. She burns away illusion. She provokes fear, leaving you to face the mirror and find only what is real. In her flames, death becomes birth, and birth becomes something new. Darkness envelops you and the jungle stirs. Ixchel, the jaguar goddess, prowls through the night. She is the pulse of the wild, life and death, moving together in her silent steps. Her power is primal. She gives life and takes it. She embodies the untamed force of creation and makes no apologies for her power. She is the heartbeat of the world. And then, in the quiet of the night, we find the Great Mother. She is neither in the heavens nor the earth. She is deep within you, in the quiet spaces of your soul, in the deep recesses of your heart. She is the abyss and the cradle, the infinite love that terrifies and sustains. She is the cycle of life itself. Birth, growth, death, rebirth. She is the mother of all things. From sunrise to sunset, from the fires of transformation to the stillness of night, Mother guides us. She reminds us that creation requires destruction, that protection often means release, that love is fierce, wild, and untamed. She asks the question, are you ready to surrender? Motherhood was always something that I viewed at a distance. It felt foreign, like a role I wasn't sure if I could ever play. I often thought about it through the lens of that movie Alien and the metaphor of the brutality of creation, that extraterrestrial body horror of something growing inside you that, despite its origins in you, feels completely other. The isolation, the fear, the unknown of it all. Pregnancy and motherhood felt like stepping into dark, cold, empty space, a place where control slips away and where I'm only left wondering what will emerge on the other side of this. So often in this life journey, however you identify, male, female, non-binary, whoever you are, however you are, the pressure that these goalposts of getting married, having a child, having a 401k plan, 9 to 5, all those things, those are such pressures that make you feel as though if you don't accomplish the goalpost, there's something wrong, there's something missing, that this is an identity marker, that you've somehow made it, that you're somehow human. I never felt that having a child would be something to complete me. I never wanted to feel that having a significant other would be something to complete me. I never wanted to feel that having a job would be something to complete me, because fundamentally it perpetuates this notion that we're all somehow walking around not whole. Like there's this empty part of us, there's a void inside that until we find that thing to fill it, will just be an abyss lurking within your spirit. Ultimately, that God-shaped hole is the human endeavor, and it doesn't matter whether you have a child, a partner, a perfect job, a bank account that stretches as far as the eye can see. I think, part of being human is walking around with this feeling of longing, but the wholeness of whatever, finding that wholeness, I don't think has ever been contingent on something else. It's just a reconciliation of something deep within you. So all that to say, I knew I wanted to find love. I am so grateful that I found love. I knew that I wanted to find creative purpose. I'm so grateful I found creative purpose, but I was never really sure how I felt about having a child. I always used to say that I'd be fine whether I did or I didn't. I never felt like being a mother was the thing that I needed in order to be whole. Until I met my husband. And that was just, I don't have words for it. I had done episodes in the past talking about how there's this idea that when you meet your soulmate, you don't feel butterflies, you don't feel nervous, you actually feel calm. And meeting him in those initial moments of falling in love was this calm, yes, this is my person. Yes, if I were to create another human being, I want to create this with you. But still, in the back of my mind was that alien-like fear of what it would be like to have a child. And that song, Mother, Mother, playing in the back of my head. It's like, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm losing my mind. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Yeah, anyhow. Not so shortly after we got married, we just said, hey, okay, we're going to do this thing. So we got married in June. I found out that I was pregnant on August 9th. And even though it was planned, it still surprised me. I'll always remember that it was August 9th because it was the day after the Lionsgate portal, 8/8. And I remember waking up that morning, my period was a day late, and I had a pregnancy test. I was wearing a navy blue negligee, and I felt a tiny little shift in my body where I just said, you know what, I think something's happening here. So I took the pregnancy test, and even though we had planned this, I thought about it, the feelings of the positive reading hit me in waves. Joy, terror, anticipation, nagging sense of like, oh my God, this is happening. Who am I going to become now? How is motherhood going to change me? Am I going to lose myself in the process? All of those things. I mean, candidly, and no offense to Scorpio listeners out there, I was relieved that finding out that the baby timing was right wouldn't be a Scorpio, so that was a relief. Sorry. All of these questions and all those feelings also just carried a more significant weight. And I think to the point of why becoming a mother was a alien, foreign, terrifying thing to me is because of the deep mother wound that I carry from my own relationship with my mother. The mother wound. So for those who aren't familiar, the mother wound is the emotional scar that's left behind when our moms, often unknowingly, pass their unresolved pain onto us. I'm 39. My mom is a boomer. A lot of my contemporaries and friends in this generation deal with a very similar thing, of a generation that thinks therapy is a 4-letter word and somehow indicative of weakness, which then breeds very much, I'm sorry you feel that way, or get over it, expectations, all those things. Things that actually, not to speak therapy speak, are very kind of reflexive of a narcissistic personality. But I'm not a therapist and I don't want to over-therapize, but the mother wound is real, and it manifests in many ways. And for me, it really came from growing up with a mom who was very self-absorbed, and her reflection was only there for her to look in the mirror, to admire her looks, never to look at her actions. She never really paused, and still to this day doesn't pause and think about how her actions might hurt other people. And as a child, I grew up under the weight of that, and I always felt unseen, unheard, unsupported. And as an adult, I have a big justice sensitivity and sensitivity to feeling unheard, or when other people are talked over or talked at, it is like the worst trigger. So that comes deep from the mother wound. I carried all that into my motherhood, and fear that somehow becoming pregnant and becoming a mother would magically transform me into my mom, like biting into a magic apple or some potion that dissolves all of what makes me me and turns me into maybe this is demonic form that was lurking within and would take hold when the alien was there. It just was consuming, this feeling of changing into someone I didn't recognize. Alien is the word that is best for it. It's very scary thinking about how maybe despite your best efforts, you might still pass on the wounds that you're trying actively to heal. It's a fear that cuts deep, like that violent, terrifying, beautiful, but consuming energy of Kali, the goddess of destruction and creation, who tears down illusions and ego so that something new can rise from the ashes, the primal force. I spent a lot of time reflecting on how I wanted to navigate motherhood in a way that breaks the cycle. And it's not easy. Society really is so quick to hand us these roles that restrict us to be impossibly perfect. As women who have it all together, mothers somehow who have it all together, can make the sandwich, take the kids to school, work 9 to 5, clean the house, all the fucking bullshit things. All that weight of what it means to be a woman and what we carry and we hold, and the pain that comes with just simply being in our bodies. I personally didn't like the Barbie movie, but the lesson is not lost. I've had this longing for resonance for these feelings for as long as I can remember, but then especially becoming pregnant and in motherhood, I was searching for mirrors and hoping to find maybe pockets of social media or online communities that I could relate to as I'm going through this process of preparing to have a child, recognizing the wounds that I carry, recognizing my mother in all of her totality. And it was a lot. Pregnancy is a lot. And, when you're looking for community or friendship or somebody that says, oh, hey, you too, right? Social media is a great tool for that. But in my search, I only found pockets of cringeworthy performances of motherhood, vulnerability porn, kids being used as content, curated perfection. I didn't see myself in any of it. And in fact, it made me angry. I remember looking at this social media account, who I won't name, and initially was very drawn to because of their mindful parenting tips, curious parenting, how to navigate big emotions from children. But then when I saw the person that ran it took a selfie after being in a hospital having a miscarriage, it just was upsetting. And I get in that same token of me searching for wanting to have community and those to relate to. Pregnancy loss is something that can be isolating and devastating, and you want to have community and those that can relate to such a horrific experience. But taking a selfie in the hospital is not something that I could ever imagine being drawn to do in a moment like that. And yeah, it's a lot. So, as I was reflecting on this, the early nascent stages of being pregnant, it made me really angry. That Durga angry, that protective rage of a mother who wants to fight for her truth with many arms, holding weapons and riding into battle, ready to protect what is sacred and destroy what threatens it. And honestly, it's kind of like this maybe potent fire that surfaced because I was trying to be fed a version of motherhood that didn't align with who I am. And I was so pissed off and grossed out by the social media crap that I was seeing that we actually decided to completely hide my pregnancy from social media and not post about it at all. So for the 9 months I was pregnant, we hid it. And then after she was born, it was like, hey, here's our daughter. No gender reveal, no baby shower, none of that. Thank you. Personally, I opted out of senior prom because I hated my high school. So instead, my high school boyfriend, friends, and I went and had this whole thing in the city, went to see a Broadway show, had a nice Italian dinner, and cruised in a limo. Much better than the pageantry of the high school dance with a bunch of people that I hated. Kind of felt like opting out in like a meta way where I don't want to participate. And my path to joy and motherhood doesn't have to look like everybody else. And the message I want to share today is that you too can do it your own way. And I think that just also comes from like deep down, sometimes the way forward is the way back. And I think back to being a child, being the type of kid that would sit alone on the playground, sometimes observing, writing, drawing, and being a weird ass kid, just feeling like alien and other. And motherhood didn't erase that weird ass kid. It only made her louder. And motherhood is deeply personal, so no one else can tell you what your experience should be. So, when I found out I was pregnant, we were still splitting time between LA and Mexico. I've never felt as home as I did anywhere except for in Los Angeles. And moving to Mexico was never on my bingo card in life, but it became part of my life because of falling in love with my husband. And as the baby grew and life started to move faster, we were faced with a choice to have 2 places or to make a smart decision and go where there's affordable health care and not piss away a bunch of money having a place in LA and a place in Mexico. I don't have health insurance in the States, and we came to Mexico because it just wasn't an option to give birth in the States. And we wanted our daughter to have dual citizenship. And unfortunately, our healthcare system in America is very broken. So coming to terms with that, coming to terms with not having health insurance and how absurdly expensive it would have been to give birth there, making the decision to move, it was a lot. And I remember at the time, because I was struggling so much to find community, to find a path to motherhood, or parenting that I related to, I found a safe space in this app called Peanut. And this is not sponsored, obviously. This is actually just my real recommendation for trying to find curated communities of people on the path to parenthood. Peanut became my safe space. I remember posting in there, in this like Reddit-like forum, asking if you had a choice to stay where you feel at home and have friends and community, but is expensive, or to move where you have help from family, being my husband's family, but it's cheap, what would you choose? And unequivocally, most people answered to choose where you feel comfortable and have community and friends. And in hindsight, I wish that I listened, because, yeah, people want to romanticize leaving the States, exoticizing being in another country, and it's not easy. It's not easy. The cultural divide, and especially living in Mexico, where we live, I live in Puerto Vallarta, and this is a magnet for, needless to say, it's a magnet for a lot of really confronting American culture, I'll say. Cruise ship life. Not necessarily the kind of pace or vibe that I would want to be living in full time. And the language and culture barrier is very hard. But I remember our first doctor that I got through recommendation. And this is something that I share just for anyone to know how you can advocate for yourself when you're with your doctor. So I think I was in around month 4 or 5. And I don't know, this doctor came recommended to me. She was never very warm, never very nice, but I was like, all right, whatever. But around 4 or 5 months, I remember I had a pop of weight gain, and I was in an appointment with her and my husband, and she had me get on the scale in front of him and gave me a look and started speaking to my husband in Spanish in front of me about the weight that I had gained. This woman spoke English, and it was just mortifying. It was mortifying because, you know, it's hard enough when your body starts to transform, and some of these ridiculous ideas of how much weight you should or shouldn't gain throughout the pregnancy, and to have a woman talk about my body to my husband in front of me in a language that I'm not fluent in when she does speak English was just a really embarrassing, shameful, hurtful experience. But I didn't realize that I could say no to being weighed. I didn't realize that I could say no to certain things. And that helped me find my no. And luckily led me to an incredible doctor who cared, and I felt heard and supported. And when I said I don't want to be weighed, there was not even a question. Like, okay. And it was, yeah, you can advocate for things as simple as that. And there's simple things that make you feel comfortable throughout the pregnancy. So, you know, I originally had also planned to have a natural birth. And my daughter's original due date was on my own birthday, which was talk about like karmic cycles coming together. Aviv was supposed to be born on April 17th, and my birthday passed. And on April 20th, we came to our doctor to have a check-in to see, because, you know, I was past 40 weeks at that point. I didn't have any signs of labor, nothing. I just went from chugging along, then my belly popped, and no labor signs or anything. So, you know, when the check-in, he saw that her cord was in a strange place, so he didn't advocate for me having natural birth. And that day he said, okay, we have to have a C-section. I said, what? And a quote that I say often here and will continue to say is, the man plans, God laughs. So on 4/20, after that appointment, we went back home, packed my bag, came to the hospital, got ready. And as I lay on the operating table, my husband held my hand. We played a playlist. And as the song for Zula played, the portal was open for Aviv, my daughter. And when she was placed on my chest, I felt a connection so deep and profound, and all of the cliches, it was as though time had stopped. The pain and the fear and the uncertainty, all of it disappeared, and I was just there with her in this perfect fleeting moment where the only thing that mattered was her, and that everything leading up to it was for her, and that all of my fears and doubts and worries and swirling ideas of, oh my gosh, what if I have the baby and I reject her, or what if I feel this, or what if I feel nothing, they went out the door, and all that mattered was her. I remember the next day, I had a lot of chest time with her, and I remember holding her on my chest and feeling like I was on Molly, and asking the doctor, I'm like, did you give me drugs? Am I on drugs, or is this normal? And I said, no, it's the bonding, it's the serotonin. And I'll never get over that this little being felt like such a profound psychedelic trip. And coming from somebody who has done a lot of psychedelics, that has done a lot of drugs, that have experienced a lot of life, has held hands with the ineffable plenty of times. Nothing was more psychedelic than that moment of this gorgeous thing that I created with a person that I love being placed on my chest and feeling the love of the cosmic mother, the newt holding the sky, the universe in your arms, the weight of grief of how immense it feels that now your life is no longer your own, and every moment and second and grain of sand in the hourglass of life is now that much more fleeting because your life is entangled with this creation that you've made. All of it. And this is just, again, speaking to my experience, because I know that that's not the norm. I know that postpartum and those feelings of maybe not feeling connected to your baby are also normal. They're also normal. They're all so normal. Whether you feel it, you don't feel it, you love it. No experience is universal other than the universal uncertainty of that and what it does and how confronting it is of what it means to be alive and a human being in your form and to reconcile your mortality. It's a lot. So I also want to talk about one of the things that also I think there's a lot of shame around motherhood, postpartum, the planning and God laughing, or maybe, I don't know, just it not being the thing, is I had to navigate a lot of shame because I originally intended to breastfeed, but it was just so painful and not working. And for those who don't know my story, I had breast implants from 2007 until 2019. And before I had them removed, I was very sick. Literally had my hair falling out, brain fog, fatigue. I felt like I was dying. And I chose to have my breast implants removed, not replaced. And my journey to health since then has just been like night and day. But I carry the scars. I carry the scars and the numbness from the scars and the numbness from the scraping of the scar tissue that came from removing the implants that damaged my chest. So breastfeeding not only was painful and almost impossible, but it was very re-traumatizing, just the feelings of the choice that I made to have them and to have them removed, and all the pain of surgery, having another new scar from my C-section, all of it. I felt a lot of shame and pressure that if I wasn't breastfeeding or if I couldn't do it right, that I was somehow not doing the right thing for my baby. And I also think that this is something that I will encourage everyone to advocate for themselves, that if you can and want to, great. If you can't or don't want to, great. You know what's right for your baby, and do not let anybody pressure you, shame you, or make you feel as though you're less than if you didn't choose to breastfeed. It is a bunch of fucking bullshit that anybody would shame anybody for the inability to do that. Yes, as mothers, it is our inherent, instinctual, natural path to provide nourishment and sustenance to our child, but life sometimes doesn't allow it, and we should be grateful for a time that there are other alternatives to provide nourishment to your child that do not make you any less than for doing so. That grief and shame from not being able to breastfeed actually trumped any anxiety that I had about postpartum, which fortunately never took root. It was this big elephant in the room that I was petrified of coming, the boogeyman, but never did. Luckily, I created my own rituals around it. And I actually ate my own placenta and we planted it under a banana tree in a way of kind of grounding myself in the experience and making the sacred mine on my own terms. If you choose to eat your placenta, do your due diligence and research. I worked with a doula that helped us understand how to create capsules and turn it into a frozen smoothie. Animals do it. No shame in doing it your way if you so choose. Yeah, so needless to say, the first few months of motherhood were very surprising because of my child and our experiences with it, and how this little being that I was so afraid of, that I thought would be so alien and familiar, has become my most sacred mirror. Her first laughs were the best moments of my life. And still, she's 2.5 years old now. And just knowing that I'm her mother still feels somewhat alien, but she doesn't. And I'm still learning to integrate this journey and understand that it's possible to do it on my own path, to not lose touch with me, a human being who has needs, desires, dreams, ideas, but me also as a custodian of life, who is a mother, a parent, a guide for someone else, integrating the two ideas that in order for me to be the best mother, I also have to be the best version of myself, to lead by example so that my child knows that she is also an autonomous being, that I am here to help who she is emerge and not project or expect or suppress whatever that animating force is within her. It's been very isolating to not have a community living in Mexico, but I guess because I haven't found that here, I found a deeper communion with my child and initiation into motherhood that has been unorthodox. So with all of that, I want to encourage those of you who are listening and considering or just curious to find resources and to advocate for yourself and to know that you can do all of this your own way. And even if your birth plans change, you can guide your life how you want it and embrace the journey in your own way, whether there's ups or downs or ins or outs, knowing that every moment is fleeting and fast, and what feels like forever is a blip on the radar, and a year goes by in a blink. And along the path, if you can parent in a way that feels authentic to you and to find communion with your children, even if you maybe haven't found your community or just don't know where that leaves you, you're not alone. You're not. There are others out there. Honestly, circling back to the Peanut app, that is everything. If you're looking for community, if you're feeling alone and isolated. And strangely enough, through this, you may heal and grow and become the parent that you want to be without losing yourself. And even if your plans don't go as you hoped, you can always guide and recenter and integrate the alien. And to know that, these stories of the goddess, these mother archetypes, the Mother Earth, Mother, Maiden, Crone, the fact that the moon, right? Like the moon is the feminine energy and she is that light that exists in darkness. Mother Earth is considered the maternal energy, the Gaia energy, and Earth is this cradle of civilization and destruction, pain and beauty, and force and fertility and fragility amidst the void. That speaks so much to what the experience of creating life, holding life, birthing life, growing life, dancing with life has to say. And, these ideas of like male, female, God, goddess, to me, they're more just archetypal forces of things that exist within all of us, no matter how we identify, the nurturer, the nonlinear, the creative, the masculine as the logical, linear. She is the story to help us find that story within ourselves as something to relate to through myth and metaphor. And I think a thing that perhaps is helpful or useful to share and is a way to wrap this up is that, life is the great mystery, right? It's the mystery that finds its way into parable, prose, poem, and moments where things are so hard to explain or put into words that the fictional lens almost helps us understand it better than the reality. And it's good to have stories or monologues or reflections when you're charting your own story, to not feel like you're strange or damaged or doing it wrong, or that you have to live up to society's expectations, to social media's expectations, that the boogeyman of whatever your past was is going to bleed into your reality. You can read into the situation and craft your own story from it all. So here's me sharing my story, encouraging you to craft your story, and hoping that in the process you find meaning through your own myth. So as I return from the mothership and embrace the alien, I hope that you embrace the metamyths you craft and cultivate through your own creative journey. I'm going to wrap up this episode with a poem to tie it all together, bring us back to the beginning, and offer words for the way forward. The poem is called The Mother of Wisdom, and it's by Adele Tomlin, and it comes from Tales of the Yoni Stone, which was published by Dakini Publications in 2020. No thing anywhere is ever born from itself, from something else, from both or without cause. Nagarjuna, from root verses on the wisdom of the middle way. For there to be a birthday, there must be a mother and a child. But who causes who to arise? For something to be born, there must be a cause. But when does the seed become the tree? For the seed to grow, there must be conditions. But when do the sun, earth, and air become growing? For something to die, there must be change. But when does the change become death? For there to be objects, there must be words. But when did the words become the objects? All I know is, when I watch you sleep, even the words love and compassion fall away, like countless tears from a billion mothers into a deep ocean of timeless peace. Child, you are my guru, my suffering, my joy. You gave birth to me, a mother, and for that, I am eternally grateful. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more episodes to come.